Well, super. It's super to see you, Nicholas. And yeah, for anyone who's not familiar, this is Nicholas Babin, and he's worked all over the world. And today we're gonna discuss about feedback, giving feedback, and why feedback matters. Choosing when to give feedback are the three topics we're going to discuss, and we're going to split them up probably into three different expert talks here. So, do you want to just give a brief intro as to why people should listen to you, Nicholas?
Yes. Hi, Nat. Very great to be on air now with all of you. So I'm Nicholas Babin. I have over 30 years experience all over the world, working long time for Sony, almost 15 years, in the US, in the UK, in Japan, in Belgium, France, and Germany. Now I'm back in France, consulting for companies big and small. I work for Huawei as a key opinion leader around artificial intelligence. And I also work for a lot of startups. I've created 21 startups in my life, done a lot of fundraising as well. And so giving feedback is a great subject for me.
It's not easy though, is it? Like to give feedback. I think it's an emotional thing, isn't it? It's managing to, because you're always very good at that. I never see you kind of flustered, because we've worked together probably for over a year, I think now,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I've never seen you flustered. Perhaps you have been flustered, but you've never showed me that you're flustered, because I give you feedback and you give me feedback, right?
Yeah.
But like when you are more senior than people, how is giving feedback done?
So giving feedback is very important as long as you keep the emotions away. What's really important is you're giving feedback about a fact. So you have different types also of feedback because different cultures will take feedback differently. I've worked a lot in the US and in the UK, and it's true that it's easier to give feedback in those countries because the culture allows it more, in the sense that you do something that's good, then people will tell you it's good. In France, I have rarely, I mean, I'm saying very, very rarely seen somebody saying, great job. It's really, I'm really pleased with what you've done. In the US, for the French, the US is a country where it's done too much. So it has less credibility. In France, for somebody to tell you you've done a very good job, that means that, yeah, wow, that's been absolutely amazing. So giving feedback is cannot be emotional because you need to put yourself in the other person's shoe. So if you're face to face, which I always like to do rather than doing it over a phone or over a computer, but if you're face to face, at least you know you're in the same type of environment and you can control the way the other person will react to your feedback, which is easier. Sometimes I've had bosses, especially in Japan, calling me and giving me their feedback with poor English, and that's also another very important point. When you give feedback, you need to make sure that people have the same level of understanding than you. So if English is not their mother tongue, you need to put yourself at their level. So giving feedback is really important to understand that two people are hopefully in the same room, same environment, same level. And it's not for them to put themselves at your level, it's for you, the person who gives the feedback, to be at their level. Once you do that and you keep the emotions away because it's only about work, you're not going to tell the person, I don't like your dress today. It's not that type of feedback you give anyway. Somebody telling me I don't like it because you're bald. No, that doesn't work. What's really important is that you say, look, we've had this project. We all agreed that this is the way to go for the project. At one point, you told me that you wanted to go that direction. This is the results we got. Fantastic, because it's over my expectations or it's under my expectations. What could we have done differently? What I found in giving feedback is when you make people think and you make people realize the effect of their decision, you do not need to be mean or making them feel guilty or anything, because they see it. And when you're face to face, you see on their face that they see, oh yeah, you're right. As a leader, my role has always been to say, I'm a door opener. What I need to do is to make sure that you are going to grow from my management. That has always been the case. You can go on my LinkedIn and you see I have over 80 recommendations, and everybody says that. So if I let somebody basically go with their own idea, which I do most of the time, I'm not going to be the one after that saying, "Oh, you see, you shouldn't have done that." This is not the way good feedback is given. The good feedback needs to be credible and needs to be constructive. And that's why I always like to say, well, what could we have done differently if the result is not good? But I'm the first one to give feedback as soon as I realize that a result is good, or the person has done over what we would have expected as a company. I think it's really important to know. And the last thing I want to say is, by giving feedback, you, on top of it, immediately put yourself, give the other person the understanding of where you stand. It's terrible when you have, you think your boss thinks that of you. You say, "Oh, when would he be able to tell me?" And it's terrible to pick up your phone and say, "Can you please tell me what you think about this?" So as a leader, as a boss of a company, or of people, you need to make sure at least at all time people know where you stand, and they need to know that all time you're going to be behind them and you're going to make them grow.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. So what about giving feedback the other way around, as an employee to a senior manager? That's obviously going to be more difficult, depending upon the individuals involved, right? But
Absolutely.
I think that's something that I think when people are of a certain age, they're not going to want to hear that at all, right? But then, is that an age thing, or is that a mindset thing?
It's a cultural and mindset thing. For example, I worked in Japan. I could have never told my boss in Japan, I would have done things differently. Never, ever in a million years, because that's their culture. You have the boss, exactly. I mean, one of the example I give when I talk about feedback to my employees or everything, I want to get feedback all the time. I'm the type of guy who works and lives with feedback. In my family, even with my children, when they're not happy with me, I want them to tell me. I want I want to be able to put it on the table and at least discuss it. But in Japan, there was this very good example of a pilot and a co-pilot on ANA, Old Nippon Airways, big airline there. And the pilot was wrong, and the co-pilot didn't want to tell him he was wrong, and the plane crashed. So after that, the recording in the black box showed that the co-pilot understood that something was going wrong, but could not tell the pilot. So this culture is going through a major transformation because they understand that it's very important. But at Sony, I used to have bosses who, seriously, you would see them, you would have drinks with them at night, because that's normally what they do. Mm-hmm. But you don't talk about business, and especially you do not give them feedback about how you feel, especially how you feel about them. For me, as I explained, when I gave feedback regularly, and I gave non-emotional feedback, so people will feel more comfortable giving me feedback on their return. And most of the time, I used to say to my division in Sony, even the receptionist, I used to get them all in a room and say, once a week, and I say, I want feedback from all of you, even you, Beatrice. Her name was Beatrice, I remember very vividly. And I said, even you, Beatrice, you can wake up this morning with a fantastic idea which will make us rich and successful and everything. Just don't hesitate. It's not because you don't have a role in business that you don't have the right idea. Everybody has ideas. They can be disruptive. And especially what I like about giving feedback is that, I have my own mindset and I know where I want to go, but I don't know what I don't know. When other people probably will have other ideas and will be able to make me bigger and make me richer in my thinking. That's why feedback needs to go both ways. I totally buy that. But again, some cultures, some mindsets will not allow it. If you're an older gentleman or an older lady, it might be difficult to tell your boss who's younger that type of feedback. Or if you're an older leader, it might be very difficult for you to hear. But once again, if it's without emotions, if it's about facts, it's much easier. You have a big smile and you say, I don't agree really with the way it has been done. It's not personal. So feedback can be very, very powerful if it's constructive.
Yeah, I think you're totally right in your approach, really. I mean, but it can also be very demotivating if you go to that leader and you say, I've got this fantastic idea to, for example, I'll give you an example. When I used to work in the wine industry, okay, so many years ago, I used to work in the wine industry, and it was a family business. It was my family business, okay. So to start with, I was in the production department, and we were making mead and honey wine and liqueurs like raspberry, framboise, and all these things. Yeah, and we used to supply the historic royal palaces and lots of very, very fine establishments. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very interesting. And this manager, so I spent all this time making boxes. And at that point, so we would make a box, and then so with a box, it comes folded. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes on a massive lorry with loads of pallets, and you get a whole lorry full of boxes, and they arrive. And then you're like, okay, so you have to get the boxes ready for the bottling machine. Yeah.
Yep.
So we got these boxes, and so happens that day I was making boxes for the next day, where I would go and work on the production line at the end of the line and fill the boxes and then move the boxes, not automated. Yeah. All right. We had a bottling line, which was automated, but the rest of it was quite manual. The bottles came in, and like in France, right? Like you put the bottle
exactly
on
the process.
yeah. Not quite as, old school as some of the French vineyards, I'm sure. Right. But it was state of the art, apart from you had to do some of this manual work. So these boxes came in, and I was folding them. And weeks later, I was thinking there must be an easier way. Like I'm folding this box, and then I'm folding the innard, and then I'm putting the innard in the box, and then I'm turning it up the other way. And then, I was sticking the tape on the bottom. And I was like, there must be an easier, faster way to do this. Surely you can buy boxes that already have an innard inside the box when they get delivered, right? Like, this is a no-brainer, yeah? Like, come on, right? So I went to the manager. I said, Jim, look, you must be able to buy these boxes, yeah? So what he did is he went and he found these boxes, yeah? And then he took it as his idea. And I got no credit for that idea, yeah? And it streamlined the whole business, yeah? Because you could almost keep up with the production line with making boxes. So it would have saved a lot of labor, yeah, if that labor cost had been reapportioned somewhere else, right? But unfortunately, he took this as his idea, and it's the most demotivational thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So if there are any leaders who are listening to this, and you go and do that to someone who might even be the janitor, yeah, if you go and do that to someone, you're out of order. And Jim, if you're listening, you're out of order, mate.
Totally agree. You're out of order, and also it's not very smart, because even if it's a janitor who does that, the janitor works for you. So at the end of the day, you promote the janitor for having a great idea. It's going to fall back on you anyway. So this is why I at least in all my jobs, and that's probably why I have so many contacts and such a great feedback from everyone. I wanted to make sure that we were not working for ourselves. And at Sony was quite difficult, because it's true that a lot of people were like, I want to be looking good for the Japanese. I want to look good for the management, everything. I said, no, what's important is that our team looks good. It's that there's no I in team. Again, as we know. And that's why it's not smart to say, I'm going to steal an idea from someone, because the person after that either is going to leave the company or is never going to give an idea again. Exactly. And that's why you needed it, is to transform that business, was your idea was the right one. And he realized that, but because he was insecure, and that you can find as well, with people who are insecure, who haven't had the great success that they were expecting in their lives or whatever. You can understand why he's done that, but it's not fair and it's not smart.
It's unethical. Yeah.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, you have unethical people in business, and they're the ones that think that they're laughing. Yeah. But you know what? They have to look at themselves in the mirror. Yeah.
and the wheel always comes around, you know. So
Yeah. They've got to look at themselves in that mirror, right? And you
yeah,
know, I just, there are no words. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, and I never accepted that. But that has happened to me as well. So
Of
I know the
course.
feeling, and it
Yeah.
hurts. It hurts in your
Yeah,
stomach.
It hurts inside, right? It's like
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
you've given your best. You've spent ages coming up with this amazing creative idea, yeah, and
Yeah,
then suddenly someone's just taken it and pretended it's theirs. It's stealing, yeah.
it's perfect
It's
timing to give feedback. Say this is not right what you did, not fair, and please
yeah.
don't do it again.
If you don't want to get fired, yes.
Yeah, but after that, you know, life is all about making decisions and
Yeah. It really is. It really is. Well, it's been a real pleasure. We're going to talk in a minute. We're going to talk on another episode. We're going to talk about why feedback matters. So
yeah.
that's fantastic. Thanks, Nicholas.
Thank you, Nat.